Welcome in to this gathering of grief. Welcome into this gathering of memory. Welcome in to this gathering of love. Welcome into this service of remembrance for Lee Guerette. I am Reverend Allison Palm, and I serve as the minister of this congregation, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashua, where Lee was a member for the last 8 years. And I welcome you all, whoever you are, whatever connection with Lee or her family brings you here today, to this service of remembrance and love. Let us begin by taking a deep breath and arriving here, to this time, to this moment. Give yourself the gift of being fully present here as we gather to do one of the hardest things we as humans have to do, to say goodbye to one beloved among us. Today we have gathered to grieve Lee's loss and to remember the many gifts that she brought to the world. We gather to hold one another gently through our loss, to celebrate Lee's life, and to say farewell. Throughout our service today, we'll hear stories about who Lee was and the impact she had on those around her, on each one of you. Lee was an educator and an artist, but perhaps above all else, a student. She brought an eager curiosity to the world and was always educating herself, especially through the philosophy school that was core to her identity. She was creative and nurturing, loving and endlessly kind. She was always trying to better any situation she found and believed that kindness was the answer. Though Lee has died, she is not forgotten. Her story, her spark, her truth remains among us. Throughout our time together today, we will seek to lift up and remember those truths that keep Lee alive in our hearts. We seek to make her presence among us as true and honest as possible, so that we might say a true farewell and send her into the great mystery with our blessing. In the midst of loss, it is good to be together, to grieve together, to share together, to celebrate Lee together, and to begin to heal together. So let us begin. It is tradition in the Unitarian Universalist congregations to mark the beginning of the service by lighting a flaming chalice. And our chalice will be lit today by Lee's son, Ken Gidge. In this time of loss, we light a flame in honor of Lee and the light she brought into each of our lives. Some of us knew her well, some only a little, but we come together to light this flame, sign of her life, sign that together we remember Lee, wife, mother, and friend. Together in sadness and joy, we share her light. Together, we celebrate her life. I invite you to rise now in body or spirit for our opening hymn, Amazing Grace. It's number 205 in the gray book, and will also come up on the slides.
Dance as a Metaphor by Lee Guerette. Show up in proper attire for the occasion. The steps may seem fast, but with practice, you can do it. Learning something new is never a waste of time. Don't be afraid to try. You might enjoy it. You'll get to lead, but not as often as you'd like. When you make up your own steps, other people will watch. Sometimes you have to back up and get some guidance. Your partner can make a big difference in how well you do. It takes time to learn, and some people never get the hang of it. Often, you can't help the way someone else moves. Listen to the music to perfect your timing. If you miss a beat, ignore it. Keep going. But watch others. You'll learn something. Partners may come and go, but movement goes on. The hot, sweaty form is good for your heart. Dramatic pauses are powerful too, giving a moment to catch our breath. Drink plenty of water and eat light refreshments. Take breaks if you need it. Enthusiasm makes a big difference. Don't be afraid. People who refuse to take chances miss a lot. When the lights get low, slow down. Most of all, enjoy the dance.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Wharton, and I'm the current president of the Advaita Meditation Center in Waltham, the philosophy school that Reverend Palm referred to, which Lee was a devoted member of for over 40 years. Our organization explores and teaches what has been called the perennial philosophy, with a focus on the Indian tradition of Vedanta. And it teaches that the reality of ourselves, our deepest divine self, lies beyond personality and individual. This teaching makes few promises about the course and events of our daily existence. The unfolding of our lives in the world is often compared to waves, sometimes turbulent, at the surface of the ocean. But the teaching reminds us, through meditation and practice, helps us see that those waves are all water, taking on various shapes on the face of the fathomless, still, deep, on the face of awareness. To know that in the moment opens the heart to deep peace, beauty, and contentment, even amidst the drama and turmoil of our day-to-day doings. Lee's life had more than its share of waves and turbulence, but I was always deeply impressed, sometimes amazed, that she kept showing up to our classes as well as to our weekend and week-long retreats. Most of us in this organization face challenges to structure our work, family life, and routine to be able to attend weekly or twice-weekly gatherings and quarterly residentials. It was much tougher for Lee because she struggled constantly and mightily not only to build a life of stability, comfort, and routine, but even to make ends meet. She struggled in part because she had dreams. One was to teach. For a time, she worked in Lowell Public Schools, and after that served on the staff at Francis Parker Charter School in Devens, offering support to students with learning and attentional issues, both of which she knew about firsthand. She also spent time at Windham Public Schools here in New Hampshire, and she tutored privately again, supporting students whose struggles she's understood. She drafted a book about using mindfulness exercises to enhance social emotional learning in schools. She also created a workshop on the subject, cognitive yoga, for teachers in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. But she was never able to turn these plans into something sustainable, into long-term work that would support her. Lee also aspired to be an artist. Some years ago, she started making lovely beaded trinkets she called comforts, something akin to Greek worry beads or fidgets. She sold these at craft fairs and on gidgeworld.com, her and Kenny's website. There's a plug. At the end of the pandemic, when our center held a 5-day day retreat at our facility in Waltham, Lee stayed with my wife, Danai, and me in our home so that she could be spared the daily commute to and from Nashua. At our house that week, she told me about the financial challenges she faced and sought ideas for promoting the sale of her products. I took her through the math, the time and materials she put in versus the return per item, to outline the improbability of her comforts becoming anything that would offer the support she needed above and beyond her Social Security checks. I pointed out that a part-time job at a Walmart, for example, would offer a better return. But Lee was devoted to her dreams. Then about a year and a half ago, at one of our retreats, she put on display a painting she'd done, a portrait of one of our members, Spencer Nineberg, and her dog, Archie. She also had one or two other canine portraits she brought. They were striking, colorful, and whimsical caricatures that brought out something essential about their subjects. She'd made them as gifts for Spencer and for friends. She then asked me about selling them, about what she might charge, telling me she was thinking $50 each. I told her that they were very good and that she could and should charge much more than that, enough to make the time she put in worthwhile, noting that the price she had in mind, when divided by the hours that went into their making, would come out to less than minimum wage. This was a promising new direction, but alas, health issues, her cancer, deferred that dream. Eventually, I realized that the nourishment Lee took from creating the art was more important to her than the dollars and cents consideration that an artist needs in order to make a go of it. The Walmart suggestion had not taken that into account. It was bad advice. When one reflects on all that she gave to her various projects, one realizes that Lee, amidst all the challenges and frustrations, was most fulfilled when she was giving. She was happy sharing love with her dogs and ours, whom she boarded a couple of times when we traveled. And her generous love was clear in her loyalty to Kenny and her devotion to Sky, the gentle, soft-spoken son she raised. And all the while, Lee kept showing up at our weekly classes and retreats. At times, she tracked the stormy seas of her life into our meetings, struggling to stay still while seated on her exercise ball during meditation, or alternatively, falling into deep sleep and needing a nudge when the snoring started. Her questions and observations in our discussions could at times take off into wayward tangents and disquisitions, or unfold as questions expressing a desperate hope that this philosophy could help solve the life problems she faced. But there were also moments when all the waves settled, like the final contribution she offered at our weekend together this past October. This was her last contribution to our group. Lee described being out on a walk during one session and being brought to still, silent enchantment by the sheer beauty of the woods and sky around and above her, as she and all the troubles of her life dissolved, disappeared into that glorious beauty. Her observation brought the room to stillness, and Alan Nineberg, who was leading that session, responded with just 2 words: "Thank you." Though you often expressed your gratitude for our center and its teaching, we should thank you, Lee. Thank you, because while my life and those of many of your friends on the surface have enjoyed greater stability and comfort than you saw, your honesty has taught us that the difference in our respective struggles is simply one of degree. We all face rough seas, troubles of body, mind, and livelihood, but it's much easier for us to escape the storms by taking shelter in our cozy settings and routines. You struggled openly and honestly. But more importantly, your devotion to spirit and your moments of grace and vision made it clear why you kept showing up for over 4 decades. You showed us at times that it's all clear, crystal, beautiful water. Getting a taste of that once in a lifetime is a real blessing, but you kept working at it for a lifetime. In the end, you were a teacher. Thank you.
These are memories of Lee by her friend Linda Brew. I was waiting for my first class in weaving at the University of New Hampshire to begin when a petite woman with long brown hair dropped into the chair next to mine. After rummaging around in a very large Indian cloth bag, she leaned over and asked if I had a spare pen. I took one out of my notebook, handed it to her. She then asked if I had a piece of paper. I tore one out of my new notebook and gave it to her. We looked at each other, smiled, and that is how I met Lee Guerette. In the late 1960s, Lee was slender and graceful. She practiced yoga, meditated, burned incense, and danced like a demon. She seemed to be an elemental creature formed of light and energy, and gave an impression of goodness combined with strength, wisdom mixed with curiosity, and seriousness leavened by humor. The ordinary laws of gravity did not seem to apply to her. It was as though she stayed on the ground through an act of will rather than be bound to it. At the same time, she was very centered and calm in her emotions. We bonded over our shared experiences and viewpoints. As the cherished daughters of upper middle class parents, we looked at the futures they expected us to embrace: college, a few years of work, marriage to a suitable young man, 2 children, and said a resounding no. We saw no reason why we should not enjoy all of the freedoms extended to young men, and set out to do just that. As we explored, traveled, studied, formed and ended relationships over the years, life brought us together over and over again. In the mid-1970s, we shared a house in Vermont. Lee was teaching in a Better Chance program. She was the same kind, gentle person, still fascinated by spirituality and reincarnation. She tried her best to elicit memories of a previous life from a very young girl who lived with us, asking her, "Where were you before you arrived here?" The answer, California, put an end to that discussion. In the late 1980s, we met again in Boston, where we were both studying for graduate degrees. Lee was preparing for her professional career as a teacher, a role for which her creativity and concern for young people made her a natural. She was uncompromising in her dedication to her lifelong search for truth and meaning, and wanted to share her discoveries with her students. The fact that enlightenment was not on the standard curriculum did not daunt her. Many of us who came of age in the 60s shared a vision of a better world with more harmony and acceptance, less greed and strife. Lee never lost that youthful belief in kindness and goodness, despite the disappointments and troubles inherent in human life. May her memory be a guide.
This is probably not a good idea for me to be here simply because I can't stop crying. But so many things I'd like to talk about, but the first is I've sat out in audiences just like this and heard so many great, good things talked and spoke about people, and I thought, yeah, right, sure, yeah, great. Well, I am here to tell you she was not perfect. How do I know that? She put up with me for 45 years. A perfect person wouldn't do that. If she lived another 2 years, I'm sure the American Pope would have done something important. I tried to think of things to say that when you leave here, you would say, well, you know, I didn't know that about Lee, but that's funny, because she was funny. Look at that face. I mean, come on. What you see is what you get. A little conniving, a little, you know, a little sneaky. And by the way, most of what I'm saying, I mentioned to Lee I would be saying that, like I'd be making fun of her in a box. Believe me, it might be embarrassing to some people, but I told her I would, and she told me if I could, I would come back and scare the hell out of you. So, you know, I might be driving the car home and she'll take over and drive it. So I want to tell you one story I think that could sum it up. In 2015, I was up for re-election as a state legislator. And I got a call from Jane Clements saying that they needed one more candidate to run. We had 3 open seats. So there's 3 Democrats, I'm a Democrat, we needed one more, and there were 3 Republicans who were going to run against each other. So Lee didn't want to do it, and I said, look, Lee, you're not going to win simply because you're not going to, because you don't want to win, you don't want to do it. So you're not going to campaign, you're not going to ring doorbells, you're not going to have signs, you're not going to do it, don't worry about it. She came in second. She tied for second. So the 3 of us went to the State House. So for 2 years, I drove her back and forth. Sometimes she was happy and sometimes she wasn't. So I'm going to tell you this story about her committee and my committee. I was in Commerce, which is Banking, Insurance, and Consumer Affairs. She was in she was in a committee across the hallway, and basically
Fish and wildlife.
Anyway, she was in a committee across the hallway which had to do with Fish and Game. And Fish and Game is an interesting committee because it was made up of old men then. I mean, really. Very conservative, no-nonsense people. I mean, they take this very serious. I think she was the only woman there. Maybe there was one more. And I just went in there. I saw the committee. I said, oh, my God, this is awful for her. She's going to sit there, and she's going to say something, and she's going to get herself in trouble. So we were on the 3rd floor of the office building, State House. I was on one side. She was on the other side. And the committees broke up. So people from our committee talking about, wanting to know about bills, moved on to another committee. People from other committees would come in, and people from Lee's committee came in, and they were laughing. And I had no idea what it was. They started talking. I said, what happened? She said, well, they were talking about moose, and how moose get eaten by ticks and all sorts of little creatures. And they're big, dumb animals. I mean, they're not graceful. I don't think so. And they just get eaten, and nobody knows what to do. The poor animals, during the summer they get eaten, and then in the winter they try to freeze the ticks up. They can't do anything about it. And they're laughing like crazy. And I said, well, what happened? He said, well, this person, Lee Guerette, and they're laughing, they can hardly talk, suggested a car wash for moose. A car wash for moose. She didn't tell me she was going to do this as we were driving up. But on the way home, I said, a car wash? And she said, I was thinking about it. It's not that bad of an idea. A little smaller. I said, raccoons could probably run it for them. And I'm going along like this. So what I want you to remember about her is this. A car wash for moose. Look at her face. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Many of you. Is this on? Now it's on. Many of you here carry memories of Lee and the way that she touched your life. We'll take some time now for reflection and sharing. If you're moved to do so, I invite you to come forward and light a candle in memory of Lee and of all that she brought to our world. You may light your candle in silence, or you can use this microphone to share a memory or story about Lee. Let's take a few moments for candles and sharing.
When I first met Lee, well, I can't really say I really met her. She met me. I was new in town. I came here in 2013, and I moved into this wonderful little home on Learned Street, and she walked around, and she sort of came up on my door and knocked on the door. And she's like, hello. I was like, hello. She said, well, my name is Lee. I live over here, and I heard that you're the professor. Here's my resume. I want you to look it over and help me to get a job right away. I'm like, okay. So I'm gonna put this box over here, and that's how I met her. And she was, the face kind of does say it all. She's just the most vibrant individual that you would ever meet. But as soon as you met her, you just already knew this is a different person. Not special in that kind of education way that we worry about, but just special, unique, and centric. We use this term now called authentic self. You didn't get any more authentic. If she felt a certain way, she would let you know, or she would just tell you things. So that's how I first met her. The funny thing is, I was so thrown off by her, and I even had a resume. And I had, at one point, didn't even know she was related to Ken, let alone like married. That came like months later. But I knew this woman, and then she came back again, knock, knock, knock on the door, found out I had a little dog. She was there with her little dog, Winston. I learned all about Winston. Winston was like the love of her life. I'm sorry, Ken, I think you might have come in like a close 1.5 years. But it was Winston and Lee. And then she saw that I had a little dog. So we would start, she said, let's go for a walk. And she was like really into this. And I think she thought that I needed to get out the house because she didn't see me. Because I really was. My face was always in a book or in a computer or in something. And she's like, come on, we're going dog walking. I'm like, okay. And my dog was very happy about Lee. So Ginger and Winston, they're playing at it and going at it. They're both little senior dogs. And, we would just walk the neighborhoods. And I found out really Lee was taking me for a walk because I had no idea where I was going. So I'm just walking with her and we would zigzag. She said, no, let's turn here, we'll go here. And all of a sudden we end up at some field or something beautiful or near some water. And this was still in the neighborhood. I'm like, where am I? We would like walk across the street and I thought I was in another state, but she knew everything. So she was giving me the history about the house and the family. So for some of you, your business is out there. Sorry. If you tell me your name, I probably will go, yeah, I know you. So she was making sure that I was informed and that I felt welcomed into the community, even though it was just through her lens. But her energy and her always wanting to give were so present. I had taken, it wasn't one for taking vacations. I was always just working. And I said, I want to take my mom on a vacation. And I asked her if she would watch my dog for me. This was huge for me because I just hadn't left the dog with anyone. So I said, all right, I'm going to pack up all the groceries and everything I practically have in my house and everything and take them over to her. And then at one point she's like, what kind of groceries do you have? Well, I work at a college, so we would have just some unique things. So I had strawberries dipped in chocolate. I had pasta and artichokes or whatever. It just happened to be after a huge, all these events. So I wouldn't have to cook a lot because I just had really good leftovers. And she was just looking at me going where do you grocery shop? No one has food like this. So we would laugh about things like that. I took things over for the dog, and the dog had the day food, the night food, whatever. So I just overdid it. The dog was my baby. Those of you who have dogs know what I'm talking about. And then we would walk also, what I remember is I finally learned Lee's name, because I was like, oh, Lee, oh, and you're married to Ken Gidge. Oh, okay. Started putting the pieces together in the conversation. But people with dogs, they're dogs, but you don't have really no idea who they are. You kind of give each other that nod, but you know the name of the dog. I can remember the names of the dogs, but not the names of the people. So Lee was really good to tell me about the family in the house and why that family had a POW flag, or why that family's house was painted this color, or what year that they moved in, because she really wanted to make sure that I felt welcome. So for those of you who knew her, she always made sure that people would feel welcome. And on the giving, for me to go away and to come back and find a pair of earrings in my mailbox, I think that was against some kind of postal code, but anyway, she would just leave things for me. And I was able to be one of the people that had the gift of the beads that she made. And I was like, what is this? Because I had no idea. And it was such a pleasure. So my heart goes out to all of you, but I want to ask you to do as Ken has asked us. I think the Moose car wash kind of idea is I'm not going to let that go. I'm going to keep thinking about that. But think about something that she gave you and to remember her, because I believe that we don't lose individuals. They stay with us in our heart as long as we keep them there. So thank you for allowing my share. And I know that she right now is having a great time with Winston at the Rainbow Bridge, because that's where all good dogs, good people get to go.
I first met Lee when we were about 13 years old at a pizza place on Main Street, across from her father's hairdressing salon. Is this not on? Oh, I didn't want to be too loud because I tend to be loud. Okay, so I met Lee when we were about 13 years old at the pizza place across from Isidore's. I was there with another girl that she knew from school, and we hit it off. At at the time, she had braces. You probably know that. When she was a kid, she had braces. But she insisted on having the cheesiest pizza you could get. And of course, that was difficult. But we went along with it. So we had some fun. And one day, she said, well, let's go over to the salon. I said, are we supposed to do that? She said, no, but we're going to go anyway. Okay, so we went. And we had a little comb out, and it was a big deal. She often told me later, we sort of didn't see each other for quite a while. We went different angles. We were both in the arts and teaching and all that. Had trials and tribulations in our life. And then we met again when she was filling in temporarily at Elm Street Middle School. And together we dealt with some of the most difficult but lovely students. And we spent time again together. And more than once, she told me the precious story of how she came about. That her father, even though he was a great gentleman and hairstylist, that people even from Hollywood would come to his salon, he was a hunter. And they had a cabin. And he and her mother were at the cabin. And one day, he did kill a deer, and he was very proud and feeling very virile that day. And she told me that's how she came about. She was very proud of that story. So then later on, hanging together, we decided one day to go to Boston, to Faneuil Hall. We were just going to hang, so we're in Faneuil Hall. Well, all of a sudden, I have Ken Gidge paintings all over the table, and we have a group of people around us astounded by the artwork, an unplanned art exhibit. So that was Lee, spontaneous, in the arts, and very devoted to Ken. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to honor Lee today. I don't really know if I have a coherent thing to say about her, and to also don't know if I could follow all the amazing things that have just been said about her, but they really are true. I am Kathy, and I'm one of the group of philosophers that Lee was, as you said, proud to be a member of, this beautiful group in Waltham that Bill talked about. I met Lee, actually I met Kenny first, many, many years ago, as most of us did. And I always loved Kenny. I just loved his spirit. And then all of a sudden, Lee appeared. I don't know how she got into my life, but she was, all of a sudden, Lee was my friend. She always made me feel like I was her best friend. So, you know, it was obvious that she made everyone feel like they were really number one in her life. I'm really impressed by the flowers that are here. They're just so beautiful. And when I was imagining Lee on my way up here today, I just saw flowers around her because she always just was so flowery. Her clothes, her sweetness, her just nonstop giving and love like flowers do. There's just very little judgment. Lee was very little to pass judgment on other people, and she was always receptive. I just wanted to say a few more things. She loved Panache, who was she used to listen to Panache every morning. I don't know who he was. I maybe listened to him one time. I didn't get into it like she did, but that was her Jesus. You know, he took her past this world and helped her to be free every day she listened to him. And that was so beautiful to know. She wouldn't take my call that day and she'd say, I'm listening to Panache, call me later, or I'm taking my bath first, and then I'm gonna call you. Sky was her sunshine. I said, that's amazing. You brought this amazing human being into the world with Kenny. How much better does that get? You know, a lot of us can't have that kind of claim to fame, but she did bring a truly, truly beautiful human being into the world with you, Kenny. It's a real gift. I'll miss your humor and your lovely. She and I couldn't wait for our retreats. She used to say, I feel like I'm going on vacation. And Kenny would bring her down to Worcester House, and many of us actually took her down to the retreats, but there were times when I couldn't, so other people would do it. But we were so excited. I'd buy Burger King. I'd get some for Kenny so he could leave him chicken nuggets and French fries, and one for him, one for Lee. And then we would get on our way to Plymouth. And we were so happy because it was really wonderful to just, it's always nice to go on a retreat because you can pretend like you're getting out of your life and just be happy. Just be happy and free. You don't have all the responsibilities that you normally do. You don't have the problems. And I think I turned this off, but probably okay. So it was a real vacation for her to go to Plymouth and go swimming. She loved to go swimming. We were roommates in the attic, and the attic was kind of mouse infested probably when we weren't there, but we didn't care because we thought we had the best room in the house. And nobody wanted to stay in the attic, but we were really happy up there. We could sort of just make fun of life. I had a little bit of a separate room because of her, her habits were personal. And we would have lots of we didn't have daily conversations, but probably 3 or 4 times a week. She loved you. She loved this church. She loved philosophy. She loved every person in philosophy. Many of us are here today. We struggled with her struggles. I mean, we didn't know how to help her, but we would just painfully listen and then just go on and enjoy being together. She had the confidence of a president. She was confident as if she had a self-assurance about her that was really remarkable. Just one last thing to say is she was always trying to become a millionaire. You know, the bubble people, they were really amazing, and I told her if you could just get them out there, people would love them. They are really remarkable works of art that are in their home now. I saw them yesterday, and they just show the lightness, the levity of life, the beauty. She was very artistic, and I think she was really a competitor to you. I think that's half the problem, Kenny. She was trying to be better than you. So I think that's all. One thing she used to say was, you know, just because people are rich, it doesn't mean that they're better. She said, you know, poor people, you're not poor because you're bad, and you're not rich because you're good. And we agreed with that, and we were good. We were good with that. We loved knowing that it's way above that. You know, materialism and spirituality were always on her mind, but she really lived in the spirit, and we all got to experience that. So thank you very much, and thank you for being here for Lee today.
I'm Kathy, and I go to this church, and I don't know how many years ago it was, but we had a pen pal sort of thing, and Lee became my pen pal, and getting into it, I thought, oh, this could be a little awkward. I don't know her at all, and she was so super welcoming and open and vulnerable with all of her messages to me, and we bonded over art, and hers and mine, and she was just very funny and quirky and welcoming and open, so I appreciate that about her.
Hi, everyone. My name is Libby Masick. I'm a congregant here and a friend of Lee's. I was one of several people in this congregation that would give her rides to church on Sunday. And it always was a short but welcomed adventure. We shared so many interests. Being a spiritual person myself, I also gave her a ride to a meditation here that happens on Thursday evenings. It was harder for her to attend recently, given her declining health, but she was such a treasure, and I'm so grateful to be one of the recipients of her portraits. She painted a portrait, and I'll confess here that I love to rock. And she even captured, she was so sensitive and perceptive that she saw this picture on one of my social media profiles, right? And my hands were doing this. And it ended up in the portrait that she did of me. And she also knew that I'm a master gardener, but don't come to my house expecting prize-winning roses. I plant a lot of things that have the word weed in it, like butterfly weed, milkweed, because I'm dedicated to saving our local and native pollinators. And she really appreciated that. So there's even butterfly weed in the portrait, so she really captured, she knew enough about me to really capture my essence in a portrait that I will treasure forever. I'll miss our little conversations on, you know, spirituality, any quote that was interesting. She was a prolific writer, and I was lucky to have many of her writings shared with me, and I'll treasure them as well. She shared anything with me, from lesson plans to her artwork she gave me, and she was a woman of such vision. And I'm a dreamer like she is too, so I know she would want all of us, when you take a walk around your yard and you start making future plans. I was lucky to get a garden tour, is what I like to call them in my family, Ken. You know, but she still had such vision for your yard and your home and renovating the in-law apartment. She was a woman of vision and dreams, and was always working on her latest dreams, and probably 17 dreams at one time. And I think that that is something worth celebrating. So keep dreaming, everyone. Keep creating. She was relentlessly creative, and relentlessly full of love and championing everyone that she ever met. So yeah, and Sky, she was really very proud of you. She mentioned you to me so very often, so you were really her greatest achievement, and she was always so very full of love for you and admiration about who you became. So thank you so much, everyone, for celebrating the life of Lee. She was really an amazing human being.
I'm Dana Kolovec. I'm one of Lee's cousins. I probably have known her longer than any of you here. My first memory of her was I was about 4 years old, and we were up at the place in Concord Street. And I just want to thank all of you. I want to thank Sky for doing a great job of putting together a wonderful memorial. And some of the tributes are really touching, and I think you've all done a great job. I'm sorry she's passed. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Zoe. One of the last times I came up here to visit Lee, the weather was warm and she gave me a tour of her garden as well. And she showed me a fountain that she had made. What I saw in this fountain was a rusty bucket, an old garden hose, and rocks that were piled up with water tumbling down. What Lee saw was magical. It was magic for her. And thank you for everybody who has spoken, because it's wonderful to hear what we all maybe knew about Lee, her enthusiasm, her brightness, but sometimes it would get covered over because she could be annoying. But she was beautiful, a beautiful, loving person. Thank you.
Dear Lee, I love you, I will always love you, and I will always remember you because you and I share a birthday. I'm happy that you have all this appreciation for beauty and nature. I remember you during our retreats, you'd be out walking around the trees and the bushes and always coming back with these wonderful little worlds that you created with stones and leaves and sticks, just lovely, just little treasures left in a windowsill or on a mantle. Thank you for your love.
I Lee and I lived across the street from each other. And so we saw a lot of each other, both at school at the Mount. And then I had 4 sisters, and Lee did not. So my sisters became her sisters. And when she had too quiet a moment, she came over and got agonized by my sisters, and they fought just like sisters. And we had a wonderful time. But Carol Lee was, we always called her Carol, but Carol Lee was not ordinary. She was never ordinary. When Lee entered a room, she did not walk in a room like most people. She kind of floated and danced into the room. And when Lee was around, you knew Lee was around because there was always a little commotion, a good commotion. But we went to a private girls' school, so it was always follow the rules, be quiet, don't talk unless you talk to. And Lee didn't like those rules, so Lee kind of made her own, and the sisters eventually got used to him, and she was wonderful. She saw things that I never saw. She was very artistic. She liked to sing, she liked to dance, she liked to do all sorts of things. Clean a room, do ordinary things like that, not so much. So she was wonderful to be around, and she always talked about the things she was going to do, and she had great visions of being able to teach others and bring others into her life and have faith and have a husband and have a child. And I didn't see her after high school because I went into nursing school, and she went into a different direction. And it wasn't until I was walking my son on Main Street and doing errands, and I bumped into Carol Lee, and who was in the carriage but this guy? And so I got to meet you for the first time, and she was so, so, so proud of him, and she loved him so much. And I know Lee, looking down now, would be just so happy to hear that everything she ever wanted in life, she was able to have. And thank you all for being her friends.
Lee's death is a reality, but her spirit lives on in the memories that each of you have shared today and in those memories that you hold in your hearts. She touched each of your lives in a special way, and in that way she continues to touch our world through each one of you. I invite you to continue to share stories of Lee's life with one another in the days and months and years to come. We can never fill the void that's caused by Lee's death, but we can trust that our memories of Lee and the passing of time will lessen our grief. We can trust that Lee lives on in our hearts.
I'm just going to share a couple memories of Lee myself. Bill mentioned the book she wrote, Cognitive Yoga. She emailed me one day and said, would you edit this for me? Most of you probably know Lee wasn't the best speller or the best grammarian, so there was a lot to edit. But one couldn't help but assist. You know, it was actually very well put together. It had many great ideas. It's worth a read if you're interested in that sort of thing. And I got a copy when it was finally published. The other thing I'll mention about Lee is that she, as you've all mentioned, was somebody who didn't live by rigid rules. A lot of us do live by rigid rules, and so Lee's presence was a continual challenge for many of us to sort of let go, let be, relinquish, accept. So that was one of her greatest gifts to me, to remind me to let everything be as it is, including Lee. So I'm going to chant a prayer that's called a Shantipata, which is a prayer for peace. And as Bill mentioned, we live this life of agitation with lots of waves on the surface, but at certain points, the waves die down, the wind lessens, and there's calm and peace. And when that happens, we actually can experience who we really are, which is universal being. And this prayer is a prayer that offers that peace, offers that universal being. It's in Sanskrit, which is a very ancient language. We sing hymns in the Western Christian tradition. This is a hymn in the Sanskrit tradition. Om Jao Shanti Antariksham Shanti Prithvi Shanti Apa Shanti Oshadhaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shanti Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantireva Shanti Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lee.
I invite you now to rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn. It's number 411, Part in Peace. We have gathered today to remember, to share, to laugh, to cry, to grieve, and to celebrate. We have gathered to make Lee's presence among us as true and honest as possible, to tell her story and hold her tight. And now has come the time that we must say our final goodbyes, that we must let her go. Our grief is a holy thing. It is proof that another life touched ours in a profound way. It is the mark of love, the mark of connection, and the mark of a life well lived. We will mourn, we will cry, we will miss Lee. Time will move on and we may not hurt like we hurt now, but then a thought or a bit of music or a smell will remind us of her, and then it will come back. These moments, too, are holy. They're reminders of that connection that will never go fully away. It's important to hold on to that connection because it is through those memories that Lee stays with us. In our memories of her, that love and connection stay alive, and with it, a part of Lee. Hold on to those memories. Tell the stories that make you smile, the stories that make you laugh. Share the memories with people who knew her and people who didn't. May they remind you of the beauty of Lee's life, of her kindness and her passion and her connection to us. And may they bring you peace. After we extinguish our chalice, I invite everyone to join us in the dining room for a reception out those double doors to your left. And Sky will extinguish our chalice. Lighting a candle is somewhat like the beginning of a life. If that is true, then perhaps extinguishing a candle is like the ending of a life. But death may not be the end of us. We live on in the memories of friends and loved ones. The influence we possessed in life works on, moving persons or causes forward. Let us not forget that most candles have more than one life, and so perhaps may we. May it be so, and may you go in peace and in love.